Russian state media reporting the situation in the Kherson region stabilizing. Less frequent artillery fire, no counterattack from Ukrainian forces. CNN's Fred Plykin reports now from the front lines.
Across these fields are the Russians. That means we need to get into the trenches that snake their way through this battle space in southern Ukraine.
So this is the actual front line between the Russians and the Ukrainians. They say that the Russians are only a couple of kilometers in that direction, and obviously there's a lot of shelling that goes on here almost all the time.
A destroyed tank turret right outside the Ukrainian position shows just how fierce the fighting is here. Spent cartridges from cluster bombs and Russian flak vests also still lying around. While some thought the Ukrainians might quickly oust the Russians and take back the key city of Kherson, in the trench, a feeling of stalemate.
There is shelling every day. In some places less, in some more. We would shoot back, but we have nothing to shoot with here.
Inside the main headquarters, the unit commander, who goes by the call sign Nikifor, shows me the gear they use to monitor the Russians' movements and communicate with their own units. He says they've observed the Russians strengthening their defensive positions here.
They have dug in very well for the moment, but with our efforts we are showing them that we are stronger and are slowly pushing them back from our territories.
This territory was all Russian-controlled, but now Ukrainian troops are inching ever closer to Kherson. Having taken out most Russian supply routes across the massive Dnipro River, Ukraine's president says Moscow's forces need to get out of this region or risk being besieged.
They are not ready to go out of Kherson, but they know that if we will have success, they will not have possibility to exit.
Ukraine's military is pushing Russian troops back on several front lines across the country. And as his army displays clear signs of weakness, Russian President Vladimir Putin ripping into the U.S. and its allies during a speech in Moscow.
World domination is what the so-called West bet its game on. But that game is, without doubt, a dangerous, bloody, and I would say filthy one.
But the Ukrainian troops in the trenches say they are resisting for their own country's sovereignty and hope to retake much of this key area in South Ukraine before winter sets in. Fred Plykin, CNN, in the Kherson region of Ukraine.
Steve Hall is a CNN national security analyst and former chief of Russia operations for the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Welcome back, Steve. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Okay, so I want you to listen to 3 of Putin's statements from Thursday. Maybe you can translate the translation at the end. Here's soundbite number 1.
Russia is not challenging the Western allies. Russia is just defending its right to exist and to freely develop.
A little bit of victimhood and delusion there, it seems like. Number 2 is on the use of nuclear weapons. Here it is.
We never intentionally said anything about the possibility of using nuclear weapons by Russia. We only responded with hints to Western leaders' statements.
Just because you say it doesn't make it true. Soundbite number 3, almost out of nowhere. Russia has a right to be straight.
The West can do whatever they want with gay parades, but they shouldn't dictate the same rules for Russia.
I don't know which Western nation is insisting on Pride Week in Moscow, but more to the point, who would want to go? This can't seriously be how Putin views the world.
No, I think what's going on here is that we have messaging to different audiences. So certainly the first and I think the third are certainly directed primarily at the Russian people, the domestic audience. There's a little bit of international audience in there too, but I think his primary focus here is to try to convince the Russians on the first point, for example, that Russia is simply defending itself. This, of course, despite the widely known fact that it was Russia who invaded Ukraine and nobody was invading Russia. So that's primarily a domestic thing that is, I think, designed to pump people up, pump the Russians up as things continue to go badly in Ukraine.
Yeah, that last soundbite, though, about gay parades, that brings us to this move by the Russian parliament to expand laws prohibiting so-called gay propaganda. Listen to this.
We propose to establish a ban on propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations or preferences, regardless of age.
This sort of anti-gay agenda seems to weave its way through Russia's national security strategy, which lays out who should be protected and from what. Now it's sort of raised to this international level. It's sort of this homophobia masquerading as foreign policy.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because, again, there's a lot of resonance inside of Russia. Having lived there, I've seen it myself. There was a lot of resonance inside of Russian society against anything having to do with the gay movement. There's a lot of discrimination that happens. But this is an interesting thing because when he raises it, there is now a new international audience, which I would argue a number of years ago didn't exist. This is not just the far right wing in the United States. These are the Viktor Orbáns of the world. These are the very conservative, populist governments that are popping up in NATO countries in the West. This populist movement, which is oftentimes much more culturally traditional and is also uncomfortable about things like the gay movement and being gay. So there is also an international audience to that particular argument, although how it relates to Ukraine is a little strange.
Yeah, it all sounds kind of a little strange. Putin added this prediction for good measure. Here he is.
We are standing at a historical frontier. Ahead is the most dangerous, unpredictable, and at the same time the most important decade since the end of World War II.
Yeah, why? Because, in the past there seems to be this perception that Putin, yes, he's an autocrat, yes, he has a heavy hand, but, Russia had the appearance of moving towards a democracy. There's a parliament, there's a vote, that kind of stuff. Now it seems it's all just got out of hand. He does seem to be kind of crazy.
Yeah, there's very few things that I agree with Vladimir Putin about, but that statement, just taken, as that statement, is indeed a true fact. The next, couple of years in the world are going to be very interesting and very dangerous. They're dangerous, though, because of people like Vladimir Putin, who seemingly, if we get back to the gay question and other non-traditional parts of society, it doesn't seem to be able to trust his own populace, his own people, or people elsewhere in the world to make their own decisions. Now, of course, that's going to come no surprise to Russians. The social contract in Russia is a little different than many places where Russians give up a greater amount of their freedoms in exchange for what Putin refers to as stability. But, the next couple of years are going to be interesting because what Putin is trying to do is challenge, what he sees as Western dominance in the world today.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It will be dangerous. It will be challenging because of the stuff that he's doing in the world, and then sort of trying to walk it back, saying he's not. The whole thing was this sort of closed circular loop of crazy in many ways for me.
It's a very interesting thing that's coming out now. Somebody put it, I think, interestingly, as the mirroring effect. So what he will do is he will, undertake activities, attacking and annexing a neighboring country, trying to keep certain sectors of his own populace down and under control. And yet then what he does is he turns around and says, well, no, this is really what the West is doing. We had nothing to do with any of this. So that mirror imaging is just a fascinating psychological phenomenon, I think.
It truly is, Steve. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Sure.